It is the last podcast of February. You know what that means, right? That it is just one short month between us and real baseball.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the show today. I am your host of Locked On Guardians, Jeff Ellis. Proud to be part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcasting network. As I mentioned previously, I'm Jeff Ellis. I've been here since Locked On expanded into baseball. Before I worked here, I was a longtime national writer at Scout and 24/7, focused on prospects in the draft and on national platform. I want to thank you for making today's episode your first listen today and every day, wherever it is that you good people out there get your podcast. I want to give a big shout out to our everydayers, our insiders, everyone who keeps the conversation alive, even when it feels like the only news we're getting is bad news. Speaking of that, on today's show, we will take some time and we're going to talk about what I've been tracking, what I've been seeing, and what and why the Guardians seem to have changed their approach when it comes to the type of hitters they're going for. On top of that, we will take some time to talk about spring training, get my take on the Chase DeLauter situation, because of course I couldn't talk about yesterday, and then some roster thoughts as well. Justin's done all the roster previews so far. I really haven't had a chance to dive in, so I want to give some of my own thoughts. There's a little bit of time at the end, squeak in a little, one or two college thoughts, things to pay attention to in this coming weekend. What is Locked On Guardians? In case you do not know, could be your first podcast. We are the only daily podcast covering your Cleveland Guardians, from the majors to the minors to the draft and everything in between. And again, I want to thank you for joining us on the show today. And I apologize if you like spring training, if you like the World Baseball Classic. They just aren't my jam. I do like college baseball. I do enjoy watching that, but nothing compares for me to pro baseball. And when we look at our Cleveland Guardians, they're a team that's made the playoffs the last 2 years. They're a team that has advanced in the postseason one of those 2 years. They made the ALCS. When is the last time we could say that about any other Cleveland sports team, that they were a round away from the championship game? Can we say that about any team that hasn't had LeBron in a very long time? I don't know. I don't think so. I know we certainly can't in football. So it's a team that's found ways to achieve, even with, rough financials, even with an offense that last year was offensive to watch. And one of the ways they've done this, and one of the ways this team continues to find success, people love to pile on. They'll be like, oh, they haven't developed hitters in forever. And then we ignore things like Stephen Kwan and Josh Naylor because it doesn't fit our narrative, right? One thing they've done, though, is they've tried to evolve and change. So back in the day, 3-4 years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, they spent a long point focused on the idea of contact. When you make contact, good things can happen. Putting the ball in play is going to lead to positive outcomes. Putting the ball on the ground is going to lead to more likely a positive outcome than putting the ball in the air. We're going to go for contact hitters, full stop. It wasn't super successful. Let's be really honest about it. But we have seen, I think, basically over the last 2 years, a shifting of that strategy. They've kind of realized it didn't work out the way they hoped. It didn't work out the way they planned. It was an approach they took. It was, there was some data behind it at the time. But I think one of the big things we've seen, and kind of some of the problems with some of the profiles we look at for hitters, is when you're going for the slap approach, the Stephen Kwan, the Brendan Donovan, the Alex Calls of the world. Eventually I'll put those things up on screen and show them. But that approach works for a very select group of hitters, but there's a lot of hitters with that profile. And they've drafted a lot of guys who have that profile, but don't have enough in the bat to make it work. And let's be honest, it's not like Stephen Kwan leads the world on fire. He's not a thunder guy, but he has enough of the other traits to make it work. And there are a lot of hitters who make that profile work. But what we have seen with, to a degree, Travis Bazzana and Jace LaViolette and Nolan Schubart and Dean Curley, and even trading for Nolan Jones last year, adding Rhys Hoskins. I'm going to put up on screen some visuals. I'm going to describe them. So if you're listening, it's not going to be at a loss. Oh, the visuals here. It did not it didn't increase in size like I was hoping. So the visual is not, I have to describe it. So if you're looking here at the visual on the screen, again, I apologize. This didn't work out the way I hoped. But Rhys Hoskins. So I have his profile here, and you can't even read the points of view. But what did he do in 2024, the last full season that he was, in the lineup enough to qualify? He walked, he didn't chase, and he barreled the baseball. Right? We talked about how important it is to barrel and hard hit, that there's essentially 3 hitter profiles. One is the bottom of this graph is all red, where you walk, you don't chase, you don't whiff, you don't K. And then the rest is all blue. There's the one where you only have barrel and hard hit. And this is the other profile. And while with Rhys Hoskins, it's a lesser example, let's look at, some of the best hitters in baseball. Let's look at what Aaron Judge does. Now you can see here, for those who, again, are listening, I'll describe it. Everything basically is red for him, except he whiffs and he Ks. And his, is it the sweet spot launch angle, I believe, maybe right there, that we have basically said is bunk and you can ignore it and we can't find too much value in it. But he is this profile of the barrel hard. Now, in fairness, people are out there, yeah, he does everything. But the reason he's successful is he doesn't chase, he walks, he will strike out, but he's hitting the ball with authority, he's hitting the ball hard, and he has a good eye for the zone. If you look at Ronald Acuna, similar story, right? Like, here's a guy who was hurt this year, but when he's healthy, one of the best hitters in baseball. We see the exact same profile. The first guy who always comes to mind for me at this profile, Kyle Schwarber. And Schwarber, a lot of K, a lot of strikeout. He's not squaring it up, again, because it doesn't really matter. But what he does is he walks, he doesn't chase, so he'll miss in the zone. He'll swing over the top, but he's not overly passive. I mean, he's passive. Kyle Schwarber, that's part of his shtick, is there's a degree of passivity, but it's not the passivity we see where it makes a hitter completely seize up. Hit the ball hard, swing. Now, looking at guys who Cleveland, had some rumored connection to, we know they tried to trade for Taylor Ward. And what is the profile again? It is a player who, say it with me. Now, he doesn't whiff as much, but and the interesting thing is he actually doesn't have a high hard hit, but he barrels, which again can be just bottom line, doesn't chase, walks, barrels. And if we bring up, a Cleveland Guardians player here who a lot of people don't like because he hasn't produced, I don't know if it's ever going to work for Nolan Jones, but if you're looking at this, you can see he doesn't quite, the chase is a little bit, not as strong as it is with everyone else, but the profile is not dissimilar to the players we've talked about and shown. And I think that's why, in spite of the bad production, we still see a Nolan Jones here. And I think, I don't think he's going to turn into these other great players, but this profile, this idea of, it's okay if you strike out as long as you're not expanding the zone, as long as you're not, swinging at bad pitches, makes sense. And I think we're going to see them continue to try to add players. And listen, I was not, anyone who listens to the show knows I was not a Jace LaViolette fan. And that's just because I've never seen anyone be successful who had his K rate in college. I haven't. But at the same time, he doesn't chase. We know they were kind of interested in Jack Caglione back 2 years ago. Again, doesn't chase. Or no, Jack does chase. Sorry. Jack chases. He chases horribly. I don't know why I said that. He had an amazing contact rate in spite of his chasing. And that is actually something you don't want, because if I pulled up data earlier this week on which players in baseball had the best bat speed, minimum 10 plate appearances, who had the highest average bat speed. The Guardians had 2 guys in the top 10, by the way. That'd be Giancarlo Noel and Jonathan Rodriguez. And, both those guys they expand the zone. So it doesn't matter if you have bat speed. It doesn't matter if you have that trait, if you expand and chase. Other guys on that list who expand and chase, Joe Adell, Jack Caglione, were both there. And, those have not been consistent players so far. So you're looking overall, I think, at a team who has shifted. I think they're not going, though occasionally they still had a few slap hitters on day 2. But I think what you're looking for right now, and what we're looking with this team in general, is them trying to look for players who strong eye at the plate, but not afraid to take a big cut. When we come back for break, we're going to talk about this a little bit more before we talk about spring training. I'm going to explain why I think this is a profile they're chasing and why there's a reaction to kind of what we're seeing across college and minor league baseball when we come back on today's Locked On Guardians. As I said at the top of the show, MLB opening day is almost here, and you can feel it. Fresh starts, big expectations, and that first crack of the bat, whether it's a breakout rookie or a division race that goes down to the wire. We don't know anything about that in Cleveland, do we? There's nothing like being at the ballpark for it. The only problem, getting tickets can feel like a grind. Long queues, surprise fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's where Game Time comes in. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage with constant innovation. It's how you unlock amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. It's simple to use. The Game Time guarantee means you get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. And here's the best part. Fees are included in the price you see. What you see is what you pay, period. We have all had that experience where you sit down and you're like, oh, this is a good price on this ticket. And then you click the button and all of a sudden it's gone up $25 in fees and services and all of that jazz. Never with Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And I want to take a moment to talk about the Everydayer Club. You're running out of time to use our code SPRING. What does the code SPRING get you? It gets a free month of the Everydayer Club. If you want to check out, you want to get access to the Discord, you can go to supercast.com, supercast.guardians.com. We'll have information. All the notes are in our show notes as well. We've got links there. You can lock in by joining the Everydayer Club, which gets you ad-free episodes, access to the group chat and Discord. And this week only, you use the code SPRING for 1 month free. Go to supercast.guardians.com or tap the link in the show notes to join us in an additional way of conversation. So why is Cleveland taking this approach? One, I think the obvious one is I didn't even show you Ohtani's. I also had his data here, which it's, interesting. He chases a little bit more. He's not quite at the high end, but, basically bottom line is all these guys, they strike out. It's like, it's not the worst thing in the world to strike out as long as you are making quality of contact and you're swinging at pitches you can do stuff with. I hate to bury Noel because by all accounts, again, a great dude. But people love to comp him when he was coming up. People who didn't watch him a lot, and let's be honest with that, we're comping him to Vladimir Guerrero because, hey, Guerrero could hit balls that no one else should hit. That's not something you want to see. You don't want to see a guy who's swinging at something a foot into the other player's box. That's not a positive. That's a definite negative. And you don't want to bet on unicorns in any situation. But what we see, this profile, I think, is becoming a focus for one big reason. We have seen a high amount of passivity in the college game and even into the high school game because hitting is surpassing pitching, I feel like, to a degree right now in at the college and high school level. We're seeing more advanced hitters than pitchers, and it almost takes the pitchers to go to a really good school and or to the pros to really start to unlock and get more out of their game. And I think that's also why Cleveland's been so focused on prep arms, even though they know that it is such a high failure rate. It's like these guys go to college and they waste 3 years and very few develop. They throw some darts at some guys they like, but for the most part, I understand the logic there. And with a lot of these hitters, they've kind of realized a very passive approach will work because strike zone and command for a lot of these young arms, guys are throwing harder and harder. They're not necessarily showing more and more command. So we've seen a lot of guys kind of have great numbers in college and the pros and just completely putter out. And we've even seen the lower minors too. That's why we say like walk rate doesn't really translate. I mean, it does translate, but it doesn't translate 1-to-1. Guys who have ridiculous walk rates in the low minors, some will still have those when they get to the majors, but more often than not, they don't because it's facing really bad competition. They raise up and the walk rates start to peter out. So when you're looking at this, you're like, hey, but all of these guys walk at a high rate. Yeah, they do. But the more important thing is, I think when you are trying to evaluate a college hitter, and this might be where I have to evolve and change, especially if I'm wrong on Jace LaViolette, and I hope I am, this is going to be a big evolution for me, because I know some people will make fun of me. I don't care. The point is to always learn. Like, I'm a teacher by day. If I am not learning, if I'm not advancing, if I am not gaining knowledge, then what's the point of this? I am always trying to get better through learning. I talked about it on the last show with Justin. I used to devalue the Cape Cod and not care about size. You know what? I don't do either of those things anymore. But the thing with someone like LaViolette is the strikeout rate was so high, it just put me off. But he doesn't chase. He just swings at pitches in the zone. Now, he's missing in the zone against weaker college competition, so that's its own set of issues and concerns. But the other side of it is he swings. He's not overly passive. The strikeout rate is not necessarily a bad thing, and it might actually start to be viewed to some small degree as a positive, especially when it's tied to, guys actually swinging. LaViolette could be a little passive at points. All these guys can't be. Like, passivity isn't death. It's death when you are 100% passive. There's got to be some degree of selectivity with this, and that's why the chase rate matters. Like, guys who aren't going to swing at the bad pitch, because honestly, the pitches that Vladimir Guerrero hit out of the park, no one else can do that, right? You can't do a lot of damage with pitches that are not, sitting there in the right part of the zones. If you're extending your bat that far, you're not hitting it on the good part of the bat. You are not going to be able to hit it with authority. Like, that's just plain and simply the truth of all of this. Is you want guys who have that eye for the zone, because the best chance that they are going to be able to hit the ball hard is hitting the balls that are in the locations that they can extend fully and, knock out of the park. So I think what we're seeing is just this overall change where they were a team that avoided strikeouts like they were a death sentence, to a team that is now accepting and taking guys who have, strikeout rates that in the past I've looked at as unsustainable. And the Guardians are much smarter than me. I think I've got like one, maybe two drafts in the last 17 years I beat them on. It's a very small grouping where that happens. They do a good job overall with these drafts, in spite of, people look at the macro too much, or just want to look at like who's the stars. They managed to get a contributor or two almost out of every draft, and that's kind of unheard of with baseball. So it's, and they always get high marks for the draft. So I'm still a believer in what they're doing. I love the fact that they're evolving and trying to find ways to get better. And again, it's like, look at Aaron Judge. Striking out isn't hurting him. Kyle Schwarber, nope. Ohtani, I mean, he even chases some. It still works because, they're not doing it. The chase rate is not to the point where they're swinging at bad pitches. And then when guys make mistakes in the zone, they're ready and they attack and they hit the snot out of the baseball. And that's how you're successful. Like, it's just this approach. It's one of the three styles I've seen. And I think, honestly, it's the smartest way to go, especially with early picks, with players that you are going to draft, because you can't find power later. You can't find bat speed all that well later. You can't find a combination of a strong eye and elite bat speed late in a draft. You have to target that type of talent early. And then the guys like Kwan, the guys like Call, those are the guys you can find later. Those are the guys you can take a handful of and try to find another one. And honestly, it's like the bad version of Ohtani or Judge, Acuna. The bad version of these guys is the third type of hitter I talked about. The Suarez, is the Jesus Sanchez, the guys who, they do chase, but they still barrel and hit the ball hard, and that allows them to be successful. So when you go for this profile and it fails, sometimes you still fail into a league average player. And that's a really good thing as well. So I think this is a good change. I think it is a smart change. I totally get why they are doing it. I am totally behind the approach. Again, I'm very curious to see Jace LaViolette, see what they can do with him. And if he works out, it is going to be a big switch for me overall, that I've got to put less value on K rate. And, look at some of the extenuating circumstances of things like health. But I think this approach is the right way to go. Let me know what you think. Did you learn something? Was this interesting, or was it just my really bad pictures didn't show enough for you to really take out much from it? Bottom line, I think they are adjusting and going for types of hitters that could be more successful. This is George Valera. If I had his pulled up here, I should have done that. He has those two bars right there. He doesn't chase and he walks. It's Travis Bazzana. It's multiple young hitters in the system, and I think it is the future of what they're going to target and what they're going to go for. We come back from the break. We got to talk about some spring training, some roster thoughts, And of course, the sad Chase DeLauter news. I don't have a sad trombone sounder to play it right now. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's the stat that says it all. The minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored credit to help get their job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. You're back. Thank you for coming back in spite of the threat of sad trombones. So we did get a little bit more information on Chase DeLauter. It's a lower body injury, by some reports, maybe a hamstring issue. And there is no doubt that him being injured would hamstring this team. It is that funny situation where it's like with guys like DeLauter and Espino, any type of injury at all is just deflates us so much that we assume the worst. Hopefully it's minor. Hopefully this is something we can laugh about later, but we just, it's a thing I keep harping on. And I know people will tell me to stop harping on it, but it's guy hasn't been healthy. I started following him in 2020. It's 6 years of constant injuries. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, he looks the part when he's healthy. You can hear me talk about why he's one of the most important players for this team. I was on the KC Sports Network with Joel Penfield. You can see the retweet in my Twitter bio. We discussed Guardians. We did a Guardians preview over there, and I talked about how he's one of the most important players for this team, and he's hurt. So this means, George Valera, another chronically injured player, it's an opportunity for him. It's an opportunity for CJ Kayfus. It's an opportunity for Khalil Watson. It's all of these players there's opportunities for. Juan Brito came back today and hit a home run. Now, so did Petey Halpin. And Petey Halpin had 2 hard hits, so congrats to him. Both of them were lower end exit velos, so I would worry about them anywhere outside of Arizona. But it doesn't take away from the fact that, after a rough day a few days ago, it's nice to see Juan Brito go out and do something big. It's nice to see someone like Petey Halpin, who's an elite defender. I think Petey Halpin is that guy. I'm a Schneemann fan because Schneemann plays a really solid defense at multiple positions and has good running data. That's also Petey Halpin. Those are perfect guys to have as your 26th man on a team. And, way to go for Halpin. Had one of the better days for the team. Cantillo is another pitcher who couldn't get out of the first inning, came back for the second. That's not what you want to see. He needs his reps to build up. I'm not going to get too frustrated about any of the pitchers early on, because it always takes pitchers a while to get going. Overall in the game today, it was, even though I can't remember, it was 7 runs in the end. There wasn't a lot I could get excited about. The hardest hit ball of the day was the game ender by Khalil Watson. It was just, at least we're seeing Valera had a single in there, some other fun pieces. It was also fun to see Colt Emerson and Ralphie. I believe Ralphie got in this game. Yeah, he did play in the same game, because if you believe rumors, back in that draft class, Cleveland was set on Colt Emerson, the Ohio kid. They were set on him. And then Seattle picked their pocket one spot before, and they pivoted to Ralphie. I like Colt Emerson. I think I had Ralphie higher than Emerson potentially. I'd have to go check my list. I don't change them. I'm not a certain former NBA guy. So you could always go to my Twitter bio and go to the my draft site and see where guys are ranked. But it was kind of a fun battle to see, because those are 2 guys that one was heavily connected to Cleveland, and everyone thought they were going to take him, and then he gets taken, and Cleveland pivoted to Ralphie Velasquez, who honestly, most people didn't have a first round grade on. So it looks like a really good selection now a few years later. So that's want to talk about that. Got to talk about the fact that Peyton Pallette hasn't pitched yet. It's starting to make me wonder. I feel bad for the kid because he was the number one pitcher in the college class in the fall, and he got hurt again in his draft year, and he ended up going to the second round. And this was his chance to make a big league team, but he just hasn't pitched yet. They say he's getting closer to getting on the mound, but he might end up losing his opportunity to make this team just because of availability. It's another guy who's had a lot of health issues, and I really like his potential. I got him as a top 30 prospect in the system. I'd hate to lose him, but if they got to add Rhys Hoskins at the end of fall and he hasn't pitched a lot, that could be the guy. I look at that situation right now. It's like, I'm sure Justin talked about this as well, but putting Walters on the 60-day, is it Nick Casey? Is it Peyton Pallette? Is it, like Jonathan Rodriguez? I don't know. I don't know what the right call is. We'll have to see how things work their way out. Hopefully no one has to go on the 60-man outside of Walters. I'd hate to see a big injury before the end of camp, but it's going to be an interesting situation to watch and track because they do have to open up that spot. And unlike a year ago where they had like 4 dudes that could drop on the 60, they don't have that right now. The other part of, a lot of what is going on when I watch these games is I'm kind of am looking for and at the specific players that I think have a legit chance, or the players, we're hoping are going to rebound or make an impact. I'm not really diving too much into I'm looking at things like the exit velos, the launch angles, hard hit. I'm not really looking at the fact that, like, I don't know, I'll go pull it up now, that Kyle Manzardo has a 350 OPS after he was the early camp story for being healthy. I'm not really diving into the fact that, George Valera has a 400 batting average, but what I am diving into with him is I've been really encouraged every time I see him play. That's kind of what you're looking for. It's spring is hard. I struggle with it because I honestly don't enjoy spring training baseball. That has come up on the show before. I have a real hard time with stuff that is not real competition, where it's more about the reps and players working on specific traits than actual like competition. It's hard for me to really get behind it. So I'm trying to be better at just looking at, bits and pieces here and there, seeing what players are working on in their development. I think Cleveland is in a really interesting situation because I still don't believe the idea of Stephen Kwan as a center fielder, just because he can't stay healthy in left field, and the ability to play the wall is such a huge thing that, foisting that. George Valera doesn't have range. Like, George Valera can't be your left fielder because left fielder has to move. That's when the majority of the balls get hit. Like, you can't put him in left. It's going to kill your defense out there. I love the bat, but he's statuesque as a defender. Kayfus he moves okay, but it's that situation where I do think more and more I'm going to be shocked if they make the move, because they don't really have someone who can move into that left field defensive position, who is fleet of foot, who does have the strong arm, who has any experience at all dealing with the wall out there. This team in general can't afford to buy offense, so they have to be more selective with their defense, because that is the thing that isn't as expensive. That is the thing that they can position themselves to be more successful with. And they've not been a team that really cares a ton about outfield range, but they have players having big arms. It's almost like they like the idea of having less range, so a ball drops and then they gun guys out because players are not respecting arms, I guess. It's one of those weird things where you would think everyone would have the book out by now and know that Cleveland's entire outfield is filled with big arms, but all last year they kept gunning guys out game after game. So it's an interesting thing to watch. But yeah, right now, like, who do you think is going to make it? I'm assuming Rhys Hoskins is going to make it at some point. I assume he's going to go through. If DeLauter's there, does only one young guy make it? Who do you think is going to make it? Who is your projection? You think it's Kayfus and Valera? Do you think DeLauter is going to overcome this small issue? Do you think it's going to be Brito who jumps up? And who's been kind of a fun player for you to watch in camp? Who are you enjoying? Who are you looking forward to? I look forward to watching Angel now. It hasn't been the greatest performance, but like, he's a guy that I've been wanting to see more of. I haven't had as much opportunities, so I'm liking the experience of watching him, even if the performance isn't there. In terms of college baseball, promised a little bit before I go. I was looking, it's so early, it's such a small sample, and most good programs are facing trash in the early part of the season. But I got to talk about a player I liked in high school, and that's Will Gasparino. He went to Texas for 2 years, was kind of a part-time player. I thought he was a potential second rounder in his draft year. His dad, Billy, is a uh, a big muckety muck in the Dodger system, like a VP of player personnel or something like that. And he is just crushing baseballs since he has transferred to UCLA. A player who, has kind of been a little bit forgotten, I think, in this class because he just didn't get to play his first 2 years at Texas. He was in 59 games and 58 games. I mean, I guess that's playing full time in college, but the 231 and the 245 for plate appearances just makes it feel like he was not an everyday guy. But I guess that is close to everyday totals. It's just hard. I'm not doing a good job with my math, is what I can tell. But he just didn't play well at Texas. He's gone to UCLA. It's the early part of the year. He's crushing everything. They're facing bad teams. I liked him as an outfielder out of high school. He's a California high school kid, obviously, if his dad is in the Dodgers front office. But, I'm kind of going back through a lot of my notes right now, looking, that same high school class, Rock Chalowski was my number one player who did not get drafted, who did not sign with any team. So, that's the easy one. I'm kind of going and looking through some of my older notes, looking for some other players that stood out. One of the players that was high on those lists back then was Will Gasparino. And right now he's having a strong performance. They're going. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. We're going to come back on Monday. Justin's not going to be here. It's going to be a solo show. Probably talk some college. I'm going to talk some spring training from the weekend. Justin's off at a wedding. While Justin's away, Jeff will play. Let me know in the comments what you want me to talk about. I will also take some fan requests because we love our fans. Thank you all for joining us. Remembering to rate and review, download daily, all the little things you can do that are free that help. Thank you very much. If you want to help beyond that, you can always join the Insiders Club or the Everydayer Club. Those are other ways to help support the show. And as always, go Guardians, go.